Hey everyone, this is Jen and you're watching BPD Woman. On this channel, you will learn how to more effectively live with your borderline personality disorder or your complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or you will benefit and learn something to regulate your emotions and better deal with your dysregulation. If you are a highly sensitive person or just find that you have trouble managing your emotions or troublesome feelings in general. My aim is to help you achieve your goals by sharing my insight, wisdom, experience, which also includes a lengthy history of therapeutic experience. And I also rely heavily on DBT, which is the modality that was created specifically for the treatment of borderline personality disorder. I've been diagnosed for about 20 years and I've lived with the disorder for about 30. On this channel, you will find positive solution-based approaches to recovery. Here, I'll talk about my own experiences, how I've dealt with them, and share with you things that I think may be helping you become more effective, which is ultimately the goal, to become more effective, whether that's in life, love, family, emotional, or financial security. Hopefully you'll get something from this channel. And if you are someone who is a family member or a loved one, you are also in the right place if you're looking for positive solution-based approaches to recovery and the discussion of the previous disorders I just mentioned. And there's a playlist just for you entitled BPD Resources Vids for the Family. I am not a therapist or a doctor. However, even though I don't have a PhD, I do have the disorder, and that makes me able to answer one very important question that most of those professional providers cannot answer, which is, what is it like to have BPD? And while professional counseling is incredibly beneficial and necessary to your treatment plan, and I couldn't be where I am without it, what they teach you is based from their practice, and what I teach you is based from my real world life experience. So if that all sounds good to you, please hit subscribe and that bell below so you never miss a beat. I produce anywhere from 3 to 5 videos each week, all something new. Let's get started. Today I want to talk about a very famous nursery rhyme that at one point in your life, most likely you have heard. And we're going to talk about how that nursery rhyme is a wonderful learning tool for those of us with borderline personality disorder. Now we hear of these nursery rhymes when we're little, we really don't give them much thought, right? You know, we don't give them a second passing thought. But at the end of the day, when you get to be an adult or when you're kind of looking back on things, these stories can honestly be used as really important markers and life lessons, or anecdotes really, that can shed some light on something meaningful that can be helpful to your life. And I was thinking about this the other day because I talk obviously a lot about gray zoning and, if you have BPD, one of the main criterion for having BPD is having this very stringent black and white thinking, I'm friends with this person, but then one day they don't return my phone call, so now I hate them, right? It's this very stringent black and white thinking. And the modality, other people call it splitting. And so one of the main aims for dialectical behavior therapy is to help, in part, people with BPD reduce their emotional ability, which is this constant and extreme fluctuating set of emotions, but also its aim is to help them see more in that gray zone, or what they call the wise mind. So taking the emotion mind, what you could kind of call, you could call it black, but it's not exactly black and white thinking. The emotion mind is one part, or black, and then, your logical or reason mind is the white. And then in the center, those two things create the gray, which is known as the wise mind. And so I want to use a very popular nursery rhyme to kind of highlight this, because I wanted to do a video to help people understand, anyone understand how you can get to that gray thinking. Like, what is a practical way that you can approach sort of the gray zone thinking Because it's one thing, you know, this was something that was hard for me to kind of pick up on right away. You know, I mean, you hear it over and over, you know, you're splitting, you're using black and white thinking, you're black and white thinking, you're black and white thinking. Okay, great. But you know, I never felt like until with a lot of practice years down the road of using these skills in DBT that I actually knew how to use gray zone thinking. And when I say gray zone thinking, I'm basically saying I'm trying to use wise-minded thinking, or I'm staying out of the extremes. Like black or white thinking is an extreme, and the gray zone, when I say gray zone for the purposes of this video, I'm talking about your reason mind, your wise mind, excuse me. Gray zone is wise mind. So let's tell our little story. So Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Do you remember this story? Let me recap it for you. So the three bears, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear, right? So 3 different sizes of bears. They leave for a day. They leave their cottage in the woods, and in wanders Goldilocks, okay? And Goldilocks comes in, and she has a lot of opinions about the way the 3 bears live. And if you remember, she comes into their house and she sits down in their chairs. And the first chair is, she says, this chair is too soft, right? And then she moves to the second chair to try to use that chair. And she's like, this chair is too hard. And then she finds a third chair and she says, oh, this is just right. So now that she's seated at the table, she notices that there's 3 bowls of porridge on the table. And so she tastes the first bowl of porridge. This porridge is too hot, right? She's like, let me try another bowl. So then she takes a spoonful of a second bowl of porridge. This one is too cold. She goes to the third bowl. This one is just right. So now that Goldilocks has been sitting, basically breaking and entering, she's a criminal. She's breaking into motherfuckers' homes, eating all their shit, sitting in their furniture. Not the point of the story. Now that she's, you know, sat comfortably and she's had something good to eat and warm, now she feels tired. She's like, I'm going to take a little nap, right? So she goes to the first bed. What do you think she says? This bed is too hard. So then she tries out a second bed and she says, this bed is too soft. And then she goes to the third bed and she goes, this bed is just right. And then she goes to sleep, and at the end of the story, the bears come in and then she runs out the door. So it's a terrible ending, but whatever. So you could gain many lessons or anecdotes. You could there could be a lot of takeaways from this story, but for our purposes, I would like to highlight how Goldilocks way back in the day was teaching people DBT and gray zone thinking without knowing it. And I'm sure this isn't what, you know, the people who wrote this nursery rhyme were setting out to do. I don't even think borderline personality disorder had been a diagnosable disorder just yet. That didn't come until I think the 1950s or 60s. Don't quote me on that. So what can we learn from this, right? So obviously the too hot or too hard or analogies is kind of the black, right? And the too soft or too cold is sort of the white. And then the just right is the gray zone, right? And so what does Goldilocks do? Okay, I'm gonna stretch this out. Okay, so when she tries the too hot or she tries the too cold, she doesn't give up, does she? She tries something new, right? She's like, okay, well, this one doesn't work and that doesn't work. But you know what? I tried this one and this one does work, okay? So she doesn't give up. That's the first thing. She keeps trying different things till she can find that thing that works for her. And I think this is a really easy way that can work into how you approach things in a gray zone kind of way, right? Same thing with the food. She doesn't like this preference. She doesn't like that preference, but this is a preference that she likes right here. Same thing with the bed. This one doesn't make her very comfortable. This one doesn't make her too comfortable, but you know what? This area right here, this bed and this gray zone, this makes me really comfortable. So essentially it's about trying to find out what works for you without negating anything right? You know, she doesn't say in the nursery rhyme, this house sucks, right? She just says, this one's too hard, it's not for me. She says, well, this one's too soft, that one's not for me. She doesn't pass a lot of judgment. All she gives are facts relevant to how she feels about it, right? Like, this one is not comfortable for my liking. This one is too hot for my liking. This one is just right for my liking. So when we're gray zoning, you know, when I first started to try to put these into practical use, like, and you know, gray zoning you'll find works in a lot of different things, especially when you're trying to validate someone else, even though you may not agree with them. You know, remember that validation doesn't imply necessarily agreeing with somebody. It can, but when you're validating them, all you're really trying to do in that interaction is to let them know that you hear them, you recognize them, and you understand where they're coming from. Okay, you may even share an experience that is relevant to how they're feeling, but it doesn't mean you agree with them. You know, somebody may come and say something to you like, I am so fat, I feel so fat. You know, would it be more helpful to say something like, yeah, you're really fat? Or something like, no, you're not fat, don't be stupid, which are both like immediate shutdowns? Or would it be more effective to say something possibly like, wow, it sounds like you're really hard on yourself and you're having some body issue images right now, like what's been going on, right? That's something that lets the other person know, okay, I've validated you, I've heard you, and open a discussion, like tell me more, continue that. And that's another way to gray zone. I digress a little bit here, but what Goldilocks does is she tries out different things without negating them or the other people's experience while finding something that works for her. So essentially she's saying, yeah, this bed is okay for Papa Bear, but not for me. This porridge is good for Mama Bear, not for me. This chair is good for Baby Bear, but not for me, right? So it's a simple analogy. It's a very simple comparison, but something can be kind of learned from this, right? That just trying out different things without passing judgment and finding what works for you is how you can approach gray zone thinking, right? She doesn't hate the entire house because she doesn't like one bowl of porridge. That's gray zone thinking. She can like the entire house, but she doesn't like a few things that are in the house. That's a nice way to look at this, right? So we'll keep this to a relatively short video, and I'll do some other videos out there to kind of compare some examples on gray thinking. Before I go, I will give you an example of a situation where I've used gray thinking. Okay, so here's my example. I have a new friend in my life, and you know, we're kind of getting to know each other, and we've had some like really fun conversations, but along the way, you know, there have been like stances she's taken on things, or she's, you know, shared some opinions or some preferences that don't match with mine. They're not like something that I look on exactly as something that works for me. And so, you know, for instance, she leads a very vegan lifestyle. I don't, you know, I think I've talked about this before. She has said she doesn't like Will Ferrell movies. I think Will Ferrell movies are hilarious. You know, she only uses like certain kind of energy saving light bulbs. I don't always have the money for that, right? So in this interactions that we have in the past, I would sort of take what her preferences were. So like the hot porridge or the cold porridge or the firm chair or the soft bed. And if she was telling me that these were her preferences, I would automatically assume that that meant she was negating my preferences by telling me, your views and preferences suck. Like, this is obviously the way to go. And, you know, back then when I didn't really have like a strong sense of self-esteem and identity as I do now, I would sort of change my preferences. Like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be vegan and I'm going to get energy life-saving, you know, light bulbs too, and no more Will Ferrell movies, right? Like I would try to do that to fit in so that I could feel loved, and like that ties back into those abandonment issues. Now I don't really do that. And so honestly, you know, that kind of gray thinking, that's an example, right? That like she has her preferences. I check mark those. Okay, I got it. I acknowledge. I will, you know, if she ever comes over, I'll make sure that there's, you know, a healthy or a food option for her that is acceptable, you know. If there's ever a movie night, I'll know not to show her a Will Ferrell movie if she doesn't want that, right? I can still think that, and now I don't think she doesn't like my preferences are stupid, and so because of this, we can't be friends. In the past, I have done that, but now I don't. I just say, okay, she's like this and I'm like this, and that's fine. Those aren't deal breakers for friendship, right? I will also say that, you know, as I've been talking this out loud in this video, that finding gray zones and sticking to the preferences you like without invalidating or mocking someone else has given me a greater sense of identity, worth, and esteem, right? Because what do those things do that I just mentioned? What do they ultimately do? Well, when you're being true to yourself and what you like, and you're feeling good about how you're treating other people, and you're not shitting on them or yelling at them or making fun of them or blocking them, what does that do? Well, that makes you more open, and I'll use this word, and you know, your energy is more welcoming to others. They're like, oh, this is a person that I can trust. Oh, this is a person I don't feel judged by. Oh, this is a person I can have fun with, you know, that understands our differences. So, and what's that done is that's done a few things. That's helped me develop more friendships, right? It has made me feel good because I'm sticking true to who I want. And the more you stick true to what you want and who you are, that builds up your identity, right? So you kind of, these identity issues seem to kind of go away. And your self-worth goes up, 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 because, you know, you're getting better. You know, think about like, some kind of tiered system, you know, like in school, like maybe you'll start at like English 101, but then you build on your skills, you get better and better and better and more masterful. And then like next thing you know, you're in English honors, right? And so think of where I am now as I feel like I'm in English honors. Like I feel much more masterful than I have in years past. My name's Jen. You've been watching BPD Woman. Please consider liking, subscribing to the channel. We've been talking about how you can use gray zone thinking to improve your self-worth, your relationships, how people interact with you, and also replacing your maladaptive thinking and behaviors with more effective ones, which ultimately is the goal of my channel. Again, I'm Jen. You've been watching BPD Woman. Please consider like, sharing, subscribing, and until I see you next time in everything that you do, please be effective.